The story begins deep in outer space, on a planet called Chitin, ruled by the fearsome Scorbo. But there's something he doesn't know. A scientist has given superpowers to his own son, hoping that one day he will be the one to put an end to that evil reign. The problem is that Scorbo and his army are about to reach the laboratory. With no time to waste, the scientist searches for a safe place on the computer and finds Earth. Without hesitation, he sends his baby in a rocket headed toward the United States. Just as the child manages to escape, Scorbo storms into the lab and demands to know where he is. But it's already too late. Even so, his daughter Agata uses her telepathic powers to read the scientist's mind and discovers the baby's destination. Determined to catch him, she immediately heads into space after him. The two ships meet near Earth's orbit, but something goes wrong. The baby's rocket crashes into a satellite and changes course, ending up in Spain, while Agata continues toward the United States, unaware of the mistake. On Earth, a farming couple, the Lopez family, are almost run over by the ship when it falls from the sky and crashes in the middle of their field. When they go to see what happened, they find a baby, but there's something very strange about him. He was born with a mustache. Even so, the woman decides to adopt him, but they quickly realize he's not a normal child. While trying to play with him, the baby shows such strength that he bends the farmer's finger. Without telling anyone, they take him home along with the ship. As the years pass, the boy grows up and is named Juan Lopez. He's a healthy kid, but his mustache keeps growing non-stop. And he also develops incredible abilities like super strength, heat vision, and super speed, though he doesn't know how to control them. All of this becomes a problem, especially at school. During a soccer match, Juan is the goalkeeper, but he's afraid of hurting someone. Still under pressure from everyone, he ends up running across the entire field at incredible speed with the ball, dodging everyone until he reaches the opposite goal. He kicks the ball, but with so much force that he scores and sends the opposing goalkeeper flying into the net along with it. Even though they win the match, his teammates think he cheated and leave him alone. At home, his father scolds him and warns him that if he doesn't learn to control himself, no one will want to be around him. And sadly, that becomes clear when no friends show up to his birthday party. Juan feels terrible, but his parents try to cheer him up. They explain that if he wants to fit in, he has to learn to be like everyone else and control his powers. He agrees and decides to try. 20 years pass. Juan is now an adult and has spent all that time training to live a normal life. He works at a company and avoids using his powers, unless no one is watching. One day, he oversleeps and arrives late to work, so he uses his super speed to get there just in time, even before his boss and best friend, Jaime, that same day. Jaime tells him they've hired a new employee and seems very interested in her. He asks Juan to meet her. When the girl arrives, Juan hears her before seeing her thanks to his super hearing. Then he uses his vision to figure out who she is. And he's surprised. It's Luisa, a former college classmate, and his old love. When they meet again, they're both very happy, and it's clear there's still something between them. But the moment is quickly interrupted when Jaime asks Juan to get some ice for a small welcome party. Even though it bothers him, Juan agrees and uses his freezing breath to create ice in seconds. But when he comes back, Luisa is already gone. Without thinking twice, Juan runs out of the office to catch up with her. A few minutes later, he finds Luisa on the subway and invites her to grab some pizza. At the restaurant, they catch up and everything is going pretty well, until a group of guys starts making a lot of noise and ruining the atmosphere. Annoyed, Luisa asks them to behave, but they ignore her. Juan tries to step in, but he remembers what his father always told him about not drawing attention. So when the guys push him and knock him to the ground, he decides not to fight back. Later, at the station, Juan is waiting calmly when he notices something is wrong. A subway train is coming out of control, full of passengers. In that moment, he realizes he can't just stand by anymore. He runs at full speed to catch up with it and tries to stop it with his strength. But it's not enough. The train drags him several meters. So he changes strategy. He races ahead to the final station and uses a fire hose, tying it between two iron structures to slow the train down. The plan works. The train stops and everyone is saved. But there's a problem. Juan has just exposed himself in front of everyone and cameras have recorded everything. The news goes viral within hours and reaches Agata, who has been living on Earth all this time. She now runs the largest tech company in the world and, in secret, has caused accidents in several countries to find Juan. When she sees what happened on the subway, she realizes she has finally found him. So she orders his capture immediately. Meanwhile, Juan returns to work trying to act normal. Everyone is talking about the mysterious subway hero, except Luisa, who believes it's all just a publicity stunt. In the middle of this, Jaime shows up with big news. The famous businesswoman Agata is going to visit Spain. Shortly after, she appears on television and confirms that she has come to meet the supposed superhero. Later, Agata contacts her father, Scorba, and tells him that her search is over. But he doesn't want to wait any longer. He warns her that if she doesn't return with the boy, he will destroy Earth along with all its inhabitants. Even though it hurts to hear that, Agata decides to move forward with her plan. She then activates a special communicator that only Juan can hear. At that exact moment, Juan is about to have a romantic dinner with Luisa, but the sound in his head is so strong that he can't ignore it. To make it stop, he has no choice but to follow the signal. This leads him to one of Agata's companies in Spain, where she is waiting for him. There, she finally reveals the truth, who he really is, where he comes from, and why he must return to Chitin. But Juan doesn't believe her. He thinks it's all a lie and decides to leave to go back to Luisa. That's when Agata orders him to be stopped. One of her men tries to attack him, but Juan fights back and, without meaning to, rips off his arm, revealing that he's actually a robot. Within seconds, many more appear. A whole army of armed robots surrounds Juan, but he manages to fight them using his strength and heat vision. Even so, the robots all launch themselves at him at once and strike him at the same time. Juan manages to break free and escapes toward an elevator. But in the process, he leaves something important behind, his suit, and a card with Luisa's information. Agata wastes no time. She activates one of her robots, which infiltrates the company to hack Luisa's computer. In the office, Jaime sees what's happening and tries to stop it, but the robot transforms, revealing spider-like metal claws and attacking him. Luckily, with the help of two janitors, they manage to destroy the robot. But it's already too late. Agata has obtained all the information, including samples of Luisa's DNA. Meanwhile, Juan runs desperately to his apartment, since Luisa is no longer at the restaurant where they were supposed to meet. Shortly after, Juan finds Luisa, but she's upset. She drank an entire bottle of wine while waiting for him. He tries to explain what happened, but first he needs to go to his parents' house to better understand his past. Luisa doesn't believe him. She thinks he's just making excuses and that he has never had the courage to tell her how he feels. Juan doesn't have time to argue, but before leaving, he hugs her and kisses her passionately, making it clear that he has always loved her. At that moment, Jaime shows up, coming to tell him what happened. When he sees the scene, everything becomes awkward and painful. Meanwhile, Agata arrives in a van along with her robots. When Agata sees Jaime, she uses her telepathy and discovers that he's in love with Luisa, so she makes him an offer. She'll help him win her over if he tells her where Juan is. Even though it means betraying his best friend, Jaime ends up agreeing. Agata then shows him her new plan. She has created a robot identical to Luisa in order to capture Juan. Meanwhile, Juan arrives at his adoptive parents' house. His father already knows what's going on, but Juan doesn't want lectures. He just wants answers. He asks them directly if they are his real parents. Unable to hide it any longer, they take him to the shed where they've kept his spaceship all this time. There, Juan inspects the rocket and accidentally activates a hologram. It's a message from his real father. In the recording, he explains that he turned him into the ultimate weapon to defeat Scorba and free their planet. He also reveals something Juan didn't know. he has the ability to fly. The message ends with a clear mission. He must return to Chitin and save his world. But Juan doesn't want that. He just wants a normal life on Earth. Even so, his adoptive parents insist that his destiny is much greater. While checking the ship, his mother finds a suit with a large S on it, very much like a superhero costume. They insist he try it on, and even though the result isn't exactly elegant, Juan decides to try to learn how to fly. To do that, he climbs a tower in the middle of the farm and jumps, thinking everything will go well. But it doesn't. He ends up crashing face first into the ground. Annoyed, he walks away until he runs into a group of guys who start making fun of his suit. One of them makes an offensive gesture and Juan responds by raising his hand. And suddenly, he starts to levitate. Surprised, Juan repeats the gesture with his other hand and begins to fly. The problem is that he doesn't know how to control it. He shoots through the sky, loses his vision from the speed, and ends up falling into the sea. After swimming to shore, he tries again. He flies at full speed and crashes once more, but he doesn't give up. After many attempts, he finally manages to control his powers better and fly more steadily. Hours later, he returns home, and his parents advise him to keep the suit hidden under his clothes so he can use it when needed. At that moment, someone knocks on the door. It's Luisa, or at least, that's what it seems. In reality, it's a robot with her appearance, controlled by Agata. Juan, without suspecting anything, takes her to his room and tries to explain everything that has happened. But secretly, Jaime is watching everything through the robot and asks Agata to step in. Then, the robot begins to speak. But it's not Luisa, it's Jaime's voice, accusing Juan of betraying him by kissing the girl he loves. Juan, surprised, admits his mistake and promises to apologize. He says that Jaime has always been his best friend. That moves Jaime, but Agata has no intention of stopping. She orders the robot to attack. The Luisa clone strikes Juan and throws him against the wall. His parents try to help, but he decides to face it alone. Juan tries to take off his clothes to reveal his superhero suit, but realizes it's not as easy as in the movies. With his parents' help, Juan finally manages to put on the suit, but he doesn't have time to show it off because the robot attacks again and slams him into the shelves. Not knowing what else to do, Juan grabs a frying pan from the kitchen and uses it as a shield to block the blows. Even so, the robot manages to grab him by the neck and nearly knocks him out. But Juan gathers his strength and throws it away. At that moment, his mother takes the chance and slaps the robot, but it immediately gets back up and lifts her into the air. That makes Juan furious. Quickly, he grabs a huge piece of meat from the kitchen and hits the robot with all his strength, until he rips its head off. Just like that, the fight is finally over. After that, Juan realizes that Luisa might be the next target, so he calls her. She tells him she's in Paris, and he immediately goes to find her. There, he tries to tell her the whole truth, that he comes from another planet, that he has powers, and that there's a real threat behind all of this. But Luisa doesn't believe him and thinks he's just making excuses. To convince her, Juan decides to prove it. He takes off his clothes to reveal his suit and says he's going to fly right in front of her. But at that exact moment, a group of guys led by Jefferson shows up. They mistake him for someone in a costume and tell him he's invading their space. While Juan tries to explain the situation, everything suddenly gets worse. Luisa is captured by robots sent by Agata. Shortly after, the villain contacts Juan and threatens him. If he doesn't return to her, Luisa and Jaime will be in danger. Without wasting time, Juan flies to Agata's company. When he arrives, he finds both of his friends trapped. He tries to rescue them, but Agata activates her communicator, and the sound leaves him completely stunned. Jaime tries to encourage him with words, but it doesn't work. Then, out of desperation, Jaime starts insulting him, and Luisa does the same. Strangely, that actually works. Juan's powers begin to react more strongly. At that same moment, a ship lands on top of the building. It's Scorba. He demands that they hand Juan over. Agata takes him to where Juan is supposed to be, but it's already too late. Thanks to the surge in his powers, Juan uses his heat vision to blast a huge hole in the wall, escaping along with Luisa and Jaime. When Scorba sees the place is empty, he becomes furious and starts scolding his daughter, telling her she has always been a disappointment. Fed up with this, Agata rebels. She removes her father's life support and, using her powers, enters his mind in his final moments, where he finally feels proud of her. After that, Agata throws his body aside and takes full control. Now, as the leader, she decides she won't just go after Juan. She will destroy all of Earth. Meanwhile, Juan returns with Luisa and Jaime to his parents' farm. Exhausted by everything, he throws his suit into the fire and promises never to use his powers again. But right then, a ship appears in the sky. It's Agata arriving with a massive throne that soon reveals its true form, a gigantic armed robot. Juan, frustrated, says he won't go with her to Chitin and that he no longer wants to be a hero. But Agata makes one thing clear, she's not interested in taking him. She wants to destroy everything. At that moment, she activates the robot and prepares to attack. Juan realizes he has no choice. He runs to retrieve his suit, which turns out to be fireproof, and tells everyone to get away. Agata doesn't wait and aims her cannon at him. But suddenly, his father appears with a shotgun and fires at her. The villain responds immediately and uses her machine to pull him in with tremendous force. Juan tries to resist and save him, but it's not enough. His father is absorbed by the robot. Now, with no other options left, Juan prepares for the final battle against Agata. The final battle does not start well for him. Agata's robot is too powerful, it hits him with brutal force and sends him flying. So far that he ends up crashing into a soccer stadium right in the middle of the final match. Using what he has at hand, Juan grabs a net and flies back to the farm to continue the fight. But when he arrives, he makes a terrible mistake. He throws the net and ends up trapping his own mother, who is then absorbed by the robot's cannon. Desperate, he attacks again with all his strength, but none of his blows seem to damage the machine. Jaime tries to help by distracting the robot, but he also ends up being absorbed. Inside the robot, along with Juan's parents, they remember something important. Insults made Juan stronger. So they start shouting things at him from inside, trying to motivate him in their own way. Even so, Juan is defeated once again, and the robot is about to finish him off using a giant blade. But at that moment, Luisa appears in the farm truck, shouting at him to get up. That voice is exactly what Juan needed. He gets up just in time, and when Luisa is about to be absorbed too, he reacts. He flies straight toward the cannon and rips it off with his bare hands. Then, without wasting a second, he starts punching the robot's cockpit, trying to reach Agata, confident. She tells him he's not a real hero. But Juan responds firmly, his name is Superlópez. With this new determination, he uses his freezing breath and manages to weaken the structure. Then, with a single finger, he pushes the massive robot until it falls into a pool, putting it completely out of action. Agata is finally defeated. Everything ends well. His parents, Jaime and Luisa, are safe. Juan reunites with Luisa and they're about to kiss. But his mother interrupts the moment. She reminds him that he still has a mission to save his home planet. Juan agrees, though not exactly in the way everyone expects, because instead of going himself, he sends Jefferson disguised to take his place. Days later, we see Juan living with Luisa, trying to lead a normal life while fulfilling his duties as a superhero. Even though people don't always take him seriously, he's determined to protect the world he now considers his home. One morning, he's late again for a date at a restaurant. He tries to explain himself, but Luisa is already upset and asks for the bill. However, someone else has already paid for everything. When they look to see who it was, they spot a mysterious man dressed like a monk. The man, known as the Lord of the Mannequins, tells Juan that he now owes him a favor, and that one day he'll come to collect it. And just like that, right in front of everyone, he disappears without a trace, leaving behind a strange object as a sign that this is not over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.